this week on Providence Virtual Worship.
Thought is where flesh and spirit fight each other for the control of direction in one's life. When we connect thought to theology first, that means we are not just left with our thoughts, because if thought is all you have, then a tragic life is your destiny. And when you disconnect thought from theology, you make your goals impossible to reach. Your concerns matter to God, that God is interested in where you are trying to get to. When you go to Matthew 7 and verse 7 and it says, ask, seek, and knock, that word ask in Matthew 7 and 7 is written in the present active imperative tense, which means that Jesus is saying, keep on asking, keep on seeking, and keep on knocking. Now, what is it to keep on doing something? It is to maintain a thing. And the reality is our relationship with God needs maintenance. You can't pray today and then neglect to do it tomorrow. Now, I know in James 4 and verse number 3, James says that sometimes we ask amiss or we ask for the wrong thing. Well, now, James is not saying in that verse, he's not talking prohibitively. He's saying be cautious about when you pray. He's not trying to dissuade us from praying. He's trying to suggest how important it is to pray in alignment with the scriptures and in alignment with the will of God. We got to ask him, even if we don't know what he wants us to have. His power to answer is greater than my capacity to ask him. But words, according to Genesis 1, are more than an expression of the mind of God. If God said, let there be, and it was, then that means that every word of God is an event. It's not just an expression of God's thought. It's an event, because the fact that God is unlimited means that both God's thoughts and his words are unrestrained. And so, if it's on your mind, give it to him. Give your thoughts to him. Give your thoughts to him in prayer. Say the words to God, because he is able to do immeasurably more than all you ask or imagine. And I'm comforted by the fact that when I give him words that I can't materialize by my own will, that I'm giving my words to the one who spoke words to winds and waves, and they obeyed him. I take joy in the fact that he can manifest that which is only mental to me. I read a book some years ago by J.B. Phillips, Your God is Too Small. J.B. Phillips said everybody needs faith. He said, but sometimes, although we have faith, the God of our faith is not big enough. We have grown in many ways except in our faith. And because of that, we have disconnected our thoughts from a strong theology. We are wrestling today with college problems, but trying to solve college problems with a first grade faith. Juvenile Christians bring God down to their level rather than trying to raise up to God's level. Genesis 18:14, God says, is there anything too hard for God? Now, that had to do with the promise that Abraham and Sarah were going to have Isaac. But it wasn't just about a promise. If God says, is there nothing too hard for me? It's not just about a promise. It's about an attribute of God. It's about believing that there is nothing that God cannot do. And if God, and if God doesn't do it, it doesn't mean he can't. It just means he's got a whole other plan in mind. And sometimes you got to be content with the fact that he could, even though he didn't. Because God's goal for you may not be what you have in mind. It could just be that God is really just trying to transform you by the renewing of your mind. When I was 17 years old, I was sitting with my friend Bishop Andy Luter. And I said, Luter, by the time we're 30, we're going to have jets, and we're going to travel around the world, and we're going to be preaching the gospel all over the place. Well, I turned 30. I didn't have a jet. I turned 40 and I didn't have one. 50 and I didn't have one. I'm 60 now, I'm more than 60 and don't have one. It's not an issue of whether God could. It's an issue of whether God would. And sometimes we just have to be content with the could, that he could do it. But in spite of the fact that he didn't do the things I wanted, he did some stuff that was more than I had thought of, more than I had imagined. And so I've given my life to him in full confidence that God is doing in my life exactly what he wants to do. And I'm satisfied with it because he's done things I didn't expect. He's given me blessings that I didn't even ask him for. He's brought me out of situations and through situations that I didn't think I would make it through, because he is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. And so I'm telling him every day, whatever you want, do that.
Join us again this Sunday at 9 a.m.